I'm Jennifer Matos with the Noah Webster House and West Hartford Historical Society, and I'm bringing you the 36th episode of our Armchair tour of West Hartford history. I'm on Raymond Road in front of the West Hartford Police Department, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. So on October 1st, 1920, the West Hartford Police Department was established, and among the 9 officers were 4 named Daniel Bushy, John Kosker, Frank Dellert, and James Livingston, who we'll be hearing more about shortly. Each officer received a salary of $25 per year, as well as a private phone installed in their house so that they could be reached at any time of the day. Now, prior to this time, the town had a town constable, and the town manager actually served as the police chief. There is also a civilian police commission that set the rules for the police department. The town manager style of government began in 1919, so that means that the first town manager, Benjamin Miller, also served as the first police chief from 1919 to 1923. Benjamin Miller does go on to continue serving as town manager until 1933. I want to go back to James Livingston. So from 1896 to 1920, Livingston served as the town constable. He was a native of Ireland who had come to the United States in 1870, and in those early days of West Hartford history, West Hartford was still pretty rural and had a small enough population that they really only needed 1 police officer, and his job was part-time. He actually would make his rounds on a penny farthing high-wheeled bicycle, and the kind of calls he would respond to might be related to livestock, perhaps apprehending a potential horse thief, or escorting intoxicated people from the trolley that ran along Farmington Avenue. As time passed, Livingston moved from his high-wheeled bike to a regular low-wheeled bike when they came out, and then eventually to a motorcycle. As I mentioned, the job was part-time, and the pay was not sufficient for Livingston to support his 12 children, so he actually took on several other part-time jobs. So in addition to being the town constable, he was also the forest fire warden, the dog warden, and the tree warden. He was a personal tax enumerator and sometimes pressed into service as a tax collector for the town. He was the caretaker of the property in the center and also served as a sexton at the Congregational Church. Now, as time passed and the population of West Hartford grew, so did the need for policing. In 1909, Livingston is joined by the first motorbike policeman named Richard E. O'Mara, and he patrolled the town on a motorbike called the Flying Merkel. He later swapped the Merkel for a Harley Davidson, and according to his son's accounts, O'Mara was hospitalized several times due to accidents that occurred while pursuing his police work on these motorbikes. James Livingston was eventually upgraded to a full-time position, and as technology increased and we saw the beginning of the motorbike, so too came the automobile. And with the invention of the automobile, we started to see some traffic issues here in West Hartford. So you can imagine with horse-drawn carriages, bicycles, motorbikes, automobiles, and a trolley, the West Hartford Police Department had quite a bit to contend with. One person who was really a fixture in West Hartford Center was Officer Ernie Hitchcock, and he directed traffic in the days before stoplights came. The officers also entered the automobile foray into this new technology by themselves purchasing a Pope Hartford police car that they used, and I have a great image of the officers in that police car that I will share with you along with this video. In 1920, when the police department was started, Livingston was taken off the beat due to ill health, and he worked at headquarters until his retirement in 1930. Headquarters were originally located at Charter Oak Park on New Park Avenue, really amounting to little more than a room. And they moved here over to Raymond Road when the police office got started. Eventually, they would move into the headquarters that we see today, but it's relatively in the same area as when it first got started in the 1920s. The first official chief of the newly formed West Hartford Police Department was a man named Joseph Grogan. He served from 1923 to 1939. He also has the dubious honor of being the only West Hartford police chief to be charged with a crime. He was charged with forgery and embezzlement in 1939 for alleged improprieties involving the payment of death claims to widows of 2 officers. He resigned, pleaded guilty, and was sentenced to a prison term. By 1931, the community had grown enough to merit a police department with 65 officers. So it went in about 10 years from 9 officers to 65. As the community began to grow and the population increased, so did crime and the need for more officers. The first homicide in town was recorded in 1932. A night watchman at a quarry on Avon Mountain was slain with an axe over a debt that he owed. The assailant was apprehended by the West Hartford Police and confessed to the crime. In the history of the West Hartford Police Department, no West Hartford officer has ever lost his or her life in the line of duty, but Patrolman Christopher Kelly came close. In May of 1934, Kelly was shot and wounded by a man who had broken into an Elmwood store and stolen ammunition. This year, we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the West Hartford Police Department. And over the course of the century, the police department has been guided by the leadership of 10 police chiefs, Benjamin Miller and Joseph Grogan, as we mentioned earlier, Walter Sandstrom, Vincent Hurlbert, William Rush, Francis Reynolds, who this building is named after, Robert McHugh, James Strelacki, Tracy Gove, and today's police chief, Vernon Riddick Jr. Under their leadership over the last 100 years, the department has evolved from a pretty much all-white male establishment to one with increasing numbers of women and people of color in the department. Today, the police department is the 10th largest in Connecticut, with 131 sworn officers and 20 civilian employees organized in 3 main divisions: patrol services, investigative services, and support services. For its entire history, the West Hartford Police Department has believed in community policing, which is a strategy that calls for police officers to be present in the community and to maintain open lines of communication with the people that they serve. This mission has guided the department since West Hartford was the rural farming town of 8,854 in 1920 to today, with our vibrant community of 63,268 people. Mayor Sherry Cantor declared November 4th, 2020, West Hartford Police Department Day in West Hartford. And to all the police officers who have served our community over the past 100 years and those who continue to serve us today, we thank you. Hope you learned something new this week, and we'll see you next week for the Armchair Tour of West Hartford history.